Greetings, everybody. Margaret Kimberley here, discussing my book, Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents, reading sections from each chapter. Today is Chapter 5, James Monroe, 5th President of the United States, serving in office from 1817 to 1825. He was the last of the so-called founding fathers to be elected. Like three of his four predecessors, Washington, Jefferson, and Madison, he was a Virginia slaveholder, owning some 75 people. Presided over the expansion of the country with the purchase of the remaining Florida territory from Spain and accelerating the removal of the indigenous population from the Southeast. His partner in crime, Andrew Jackson, we'll hear more about his criminality later, killed two birds with one stone, plotting to attack the Seminole Nation. People were escaping enslavement in nearby regions, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, and fleeing to Florida. And they, of course, wanted to put a stop to that and also to accelerate the removal of Indian people from the Southeast. And of course, planning to do that in any territory that became part of the U.S. So Jackson, in order to push the Spanish into ceding Florida to the U.S., Andrew Jackson invaded Florida, captured a Spanish fort, deposed the Spanish governor, and executed two British citizens. And this incursion created controversy, but nothing came of it. The Secretary of State, who was John Quincy Adams, defended Jackson. Monroe denied giving him permission to do what he did, but he did not punish him either, which tells us that he did have his permission. And this is just one example of the acts carried out by presidents that too many historians cover up and don't expose as the crimes that they were. Monroe was, while he was a slaveholder, while he worked to expand slavery, he and others of that time feared the presence of free Black people and wanted to send them out of the country. He and Andrew Jackson, Francis Scott Key, other slaveholders established the Society for the Colonization of Free People of Color of America, which became the American Colonization Society. And there's an irony of history. The Liberian nation in Africa, Liberia's capital is Monrovia, named for this man who helped to found a country based on the idea that slavery was good, but free Black people were not and should be gotten rid of. The Missouri Compromise occurred under his administration. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 allowed Missouri to enter the Union as a so-called slave state and Maine as a free state. And it was no compromise. It was defending and supporting slavery. And these so-called compromises, of course, could not go on and eventually resulted in the Civil War. We also know his name today from the Monroe Doctrine, which asserted the right of the U.S. to do what it wanted in the hemisphere and informing Europeans that they would be considered as making war against the United States should they try to have a presence in the hemisphere. People still, without a hint of irony, 200 years later, talk about the Monroe Doctrine in all seriousness, asserting that the U.S. has the right to sanction Cuba or Venezuela or have coups against countries they don't like that won't follow American dictates. But it's something that should stop. Nobody should, in any serious sense, be discussing the Monroe Doctrine today. And if people talk about James Monroe, they should talk about the things that we've discussed here. So thank you again. Thanks for joining me for another short reading of Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents. And if you look below the video, you can see where you can buy the book. Thank you again for joining me. I'll be back.